Parents secretly charged $115K on my credit card for my sister's Europe trip, so I reported it as fraud, leading to major family fallout. Though I never imagined I would be producing an article like this, here I am still in shock and bewilderment over what my parents have done. Alex, 28. Has a younger sister, Emma, 22F, who recently graduated from college. Although our parents have always been, let's say, fascinating in their style of raising their children, this most recent act infuriates me. For background, I have always been the family's responsible one. After working hard in school, I applied for scholarships, and straight out of college earned a decent position in finance. Since I was 22, I have been financially independent. I am glad of what I have done. Emma, on the other hand, has always been the family's young darling. I love my sister, so don't get me wrong. Yet our parents have clearly pampered her. Emma was always obviously the favorite growing up. She was never forced to work a part-time job or help with housework. She acquired the newest appliances and outfits. Focusing on my own objectives and future, I tried not to let it disturb me too much. Nevertheless, occasionally the partiality was difficult to overlook. One specific event came to me when Emma was 10 and I was 16. Months of saving had gone into a new gaming system purchase. Excitedly telling my parents I was heading to the store to buy it, the day I at last had enough money. They answered shockingly, "Oh, we already got one for Emma last week, you are welcome to share hers." Though I was heartbroken, I tried to be happy for my sister and stashed my disappointment. Still, forward swiftly toward the present. Emma recently finished with a degree in communications. She worked hard and deserves to celebrate her accomplishment, hence I am actually proud of her. I also gave her a beautiful graduation present, a new laptop she had been coveting. I heard from my mother last week. She was bursting with enthusiasm, sharing with me Emma's ideal graduation present, a month-long trip throughout Europe. Thinking Emma's gift from our parents was a kind one, I was pleased for her. The shocking revelation then came. "We used your credit card to book it all," my mother remarked dismissively, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. "We needed the points from your card to upgrade some of the flights and hotels, thus we will pay you back, naturally." I had no words. What I was hearing defied belief. When I finally recovered my voice, I inquired about their expenditure. The response made me feel as though I had been pummeled in the gut. $155,000. $155,000 on my credit card without authorization or knowledge. Trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom," I continued, "you cannot just use my credit card without asking me. That's illegal. $155,000 is a lot of money." She discounts my worries. "Oh, Alex, be not too theatrical. It relates to the graduation of your sister. Family looks out for one another. Beyond that, we're good for it. Eventually we will pay you back." Finally. Even then, what did that mean? And because $155,000 is just casual about when. My mother wasn't hearing it when I attempted to explain to her why this was such a big deal. The effect on my credit score, the fact that I might need the credit limit for emergencies, the pure betrayal of trust. "You have always been so selfish," she remarked, her voice going icy. "Could you simply be glad for your sister? This is her big moment. Your penny-pinching habits are trying to destroy it." What I was hearing defied belief. For complaining about an illegal $155,000 transaction on my credit card, I was seen as selfish. I hung up the call feeling a mixture of hurt, wrath, and incredulity. I tried to talk to my dad over the next few days, expecting he would be more reasonable, but he confirmed what my mother had said, that I was exaggerating? And I should encourage my sister more. Emma, for her part, appeared completely blind to the circumstances. She simply gushed about how thrilled she was about the trip and thanked me for helping her to graduate. When I tried to discuss it with her, I thought I was insane. Was I indeed the irrational one present? To contest the charges, I decided to phone the credit card company. However, to my astonishment, I found that my parents had booked everything online using my card details, which they had in case of an emergency. The credit card company said that it wasn't deemed fraud as I had provided them with my details. I now have a $115,000 debt, a maxed out credit card, and a family who believes I'm being self-serving for not wanting to pay for my sister's expensive trip. The individuals who are meant to love and encourage me have betrayed me, hurt and angered me. What to do eludes me. Though I know that would cause great family strife, part of me wants to call off the entire vacation. Another side of me wants to simply pay it off to save the drama, but $115,000 is a lot of money and the idea of the thing truly disturbs me. Furthermore, allowing this fall could set a standard for more financial mistreatment going forward. Is my reaction too strong? Should I just swallow it and pay for my sister's vacation, or should I stick to it even if it means maybe souring ties with my family? I could really use some guidance. I feel lost. Update 1. I appreciate all of your advice and encouraging words. The sheer reaction to my post really startled me. Reviewing your responses helped me to see that my anger over this scenario was not insane. I felt violated. Considering your counsel, I decided to proceed. I first escalated the problem by phoning my credit card provider once more. I detailed the circumstances, stressing that although my parents had my card information for an emergency, I had never approved this particular use. Following some back-off, they decided to look at the charges as possible fraud. I then asked for a family Zoom call to go over the matter and texted Emma and my parents groupwise. Before acting more forcefully, I wanted to let them have an opportunity to write this. The call was, at least mildly intense. I began gently outlining why their acts were unacceptable, the legal ramifications, the mistrust, and the financial burden it placed on me. I informed them they had to immediately cancel the vacation since I had reported the charges as fraudulent. The response of my parents did not reflect what I had hoped. They were outraged, accusing me of being dramatic and seeking to spoil Emma's graduation party. My mother went so far as to add, "We raised you, clothed you, and covered your head with a roof. The least you could do is assist your sister in having a lifetime of travel." I inhaled deeply and answered, "You decided to have children. Your obligation as parents was to support us. It does not mean you are free to use credit cards under my identity." Emma, who had been calm up until now, started crying. She wailed, "I can't believe you're trying to ruin my graduation gift. You have always harbors envy of me. Why can't you simply be glad for me once?" Her comments stung, but they also sharpened my will. I knew this pattern of entitlement and favoritism ran deep, and it was time to create some clear limits. "Emma," I continued, trying to keep my voice soft but strong, "I'm glad for you and I'm proud of your graduation. But this vacation was booked illegally with money taken without permission. It's not okay and it's not a gift from me." At last, my normally quiet dad spoke up. "Son, we didn't think it was such a big deal. For crises, we have always had access to your card. As a family, we simply reasoned that this one occasion would be acceptable." What I was hearing defied belief. "Dad, this was not an emergency and $155,000 is not a small sum. You cannot only choose to spend my money without consulting me." Emma was crying, my parents were furious, and I felt exhausted but determined when the call finished. Insisting that I was overreacting and that they would reimburse me shortly, they refused to call off the trip. Following the conference, I moved forward. I told a buddy of mine, a lawyer, the circumstances. He cautioned me that, should I decide to take legal action, what my parents did was in fact illegal and grounds for legal action exist. I also reported the illegal credit card use by going to the police station. The officer I spoke with took down all the specifics and was sympathetic. He advised me that although following charges would probably cause a significant divide in my family, I was quite within my rights to do so. About what to do going forward, I'm still divided. I adore my family, on one hand, yet I get nauseous thinking about suing them. Conversely, their behavior is inappropriate, hence if I do not act strongly right now, this kind of behavior may resurface in the future. I have chosen to wait and see for now what results from the credit card company's inquiry. To stop any more illegal usage of my information, I also froze my credit. This whole scenario has let me know I had to set more rigid rules for my family. Though I've always attempted to be the peacekeeper, that is, to straighten things out and maintain everyone's happiness, I have let myself be repeatedly exploited in doing so. Though I'm hurt and outraged, I also feel an odd sort of empowerment. I'm standing up for myself and saying no, this is unacceptable, for the first time. Though unpleasant and frightening, it also seems vital. Again, thanks all for your support and guidance. Once I have more updates on the credit card inquiry or if anything else comes of course with my family, I will update once more. Update 2. My previous update was several weeks ago and a lot has transpired. I wish to thank them once more for their help and guidance. Your remarks have been a lighthouse through this trying period. First, the good news, my credit card company's inquiry came back positive. They reversed the charges since they agreed they were illegal. Having that $115,000 weight off of my shoulders relieves a great deal. Now let's consider familial fallout. All hell exploded when my parents and Emma discovered the credit card dispute had caused the trip to be cancelled. Furious calls and texts swamped my phone. Saying I had destroyed Emma's life, my mother left an especially angry message labeling me a selfish, unappreciative son. Emma went to social media and shared a moving video about how her spiteful brother had ruined her dream graduation trip. A few of our shared friends and relatives began contacting me to find out why I was treating my younger sister so badly. The matter was spiraling out of control, and I knew I had to straighten the record. I posted a calm, objective piece outlining what had actually happened. How my card had been used without my consent and how I had tried to mend things with my family prior to acting with the credit card company. The reaction to my post was uneven. Some were encouraging, expressing dismay at the behavior of my parents. Others felt I ought to have just taken one for the team and let Emma travel. Finding out how many others felt it acceptable to conduct fraud as long as it was for the family opened eyes. A few days following my post, my mother's sister called me unexpectedly. She offered some family history I hadn't learned before and showed understanding of my circumstances. My mother apparently had a history of financial irresponsibility and has past taken advantage of family members. My aunt gave me her support and urged me to be firm. Talking with my aunt helped me to see that the problem went beyond one occurrence. Years of enabled and excused behavior have set a habit of behavior. I understood then that I had to keep strict limits not only for my own benefit but also to stop the cycle of financial mistreatment. I made the decision to go really big. For the foreseeable future, I informed my parents I would be not interacting with them at all. I said I couldn't trust them right now and I needed time to sort through what had happened. Emma also heard me say that although I loved her and felt good about her accomplishments, I wanted some distance from her too. Their responses were almost always unfavorable. My parents charged me with severing the family. Emma sobbed and stated I was punishing her for something outside her control. Though difficult, I stayed to be sure of my choice. Amid all this family turmoil, I have been especially focused on shielding myself against potential financial mistreatment. I replaced all of my passwords, closed the credit card my parents had access to, and opened a fresh one at another bank. To work through my emotions about the circumstances and create better limits, I have also begun visiting a therapist. One unanticipated benefit of this whole process is that it has brought me closer to a few relatives and my aunt, who contacted me to provide encouragement. Knowing that not every member of my family finds what my parents did acceptable is good. Regarding Emma's graduation vacation, I learned via the family grapevine that her parents are still considering sending her someplace. Though I keep reminding myself that it wasn't my obligation to offer that for her, part of me feels bad about her missing the Europe vacation. I still find myself battling doubt and remorse. Sometimes I worry whether I did the right thing or too hard, but then I remember the violation I felt when I found out what they had done and I know I made the correct decision in speaking out for myself. Though it's a painful wake-up call, this event has also been a valuable lesson in self-respect and establishing limitations. I'm finding that love shouldn't have a price tag and that saying no, even to family, is okay. Again, I appreciate your support. For now, I'm concentrating on mending and moving forward. I will post should there be any noteworthy changes. Update 3. My last update was almost 2 months ago, hence I wanted to let you all know some advancements. Over this trying period, your ongoing support and guidance has been priceless. Let us start with the most urgent matter, the legal one. Following much thought and legal advice, I opted against charging my parents. This wasn't a simple choice, and I know many of you suggested I file a lawsuit. My attorney noted though, that since the credit card company had reversed the charges, going for a criminal prosecution would be difficult and maybe expensive without any assurance of victory. Rather, we have formally written my parents a cease and desist letter telling them that any future use of my financial data will cause instant legal action. Now, on the family matter. The no-contact period with Emma and my parents has been instructive and difficult at once. It allows me time to consider our family dynamics and concentrate on myself. Having regularly attended therapy, which has been quite beneficial in helping me to process my emotions and create better limits, about 1 month into the no-contact period, Emma sent me an uninvited email. Unlike her earlier crying claims, this email was refreshingly adult. She said she had given it much thought and came to see how mistaken our parents' behavior was. She felt bad about her first response and about not defending me. Emma said she had always known about the favoritism but had been too comfortable and afraid to question it. Though I was cautiously hopeful by Emma's email, I decided to go gently. Since then, we have had a few phone calls. From what I can see, she is actually attempting to grasp my viewpoint. She had earlier kept to herself some of her own experiences with our parents' financial carelessness. The aborted Europe trip seemed to be a wake-up call for her as well. Regarding my parents, they have been less ready to take accountability. From guilt-tripping emails to enraged voicemails, they have tried multiple times to reach me. One day, my mother even showed up at my apartment without warning, creating quite a disturbance in the corridor. Though it was tough, I stayed my ground and avoided interacting. The extended family dynamics have been conflicted. Some families have been encouraging, especially my aunt who first got in touch. She is now a great friend and ally. Others, using the but their family justification, nevertheless encourage me to reconcile with my parents. For my own mental peace, I have had to cut ties to some of these cousins. Positively, nonetheless, this circumstances has resulted in some unanticipated personal development. Spending the time and effort I used to manage the drama in my family has helped me to concentrate more on my own life and aspirations. I have started a new pastime, photography, and have been spending more time with pals that honor my limits. I have also made some really important financial choices. I started establishing a stronger emergency fund and have been more generous to my retirement funds. The value of financial freedom and stability has been really emphasized by this whole experience. Last week brought one especially fulfilling event. At work, I got a promotion accompanied by a significant wage raise. I might have felt obliged in the past to tell my family this news and the money gained. This time I celebrated privately with a small group of close friends, glad of my achievements free from guilt or obligation to share. Regarding Emma's graduation vacation, my aunt told me our parents ultimately sent her on a 2-week California tour. Emma apparently had fun with it. Looking ahead, I'm somewhat hopeful but yet wary. I have chosen to keep my parents under no contact for at least 3 more months. I need more time to recover and evaluate whether they can honor my limits. Emma allows me to gently restore our friendship, but I'm moving carefully and keeping clear limits. This encounter has really helped me to learn about the real meaning of family, standing up for myself, and establishing limits. Family, I've come to see, is about love, respect, and support as much as blood ties. The friends and relatives who have supported me during this struggle have shown me what actual family entails. About financial freedom, I have also gained a useful insight. Although I have always been frugal with money, this scenario has made me especially more alert. On all of my accounts, I have added extra security measures. I have also become more aggressive in safeguarding my financial data, even from relatives. Particularly during family gatherings I missed because of the no-contact policy, there have been times of uncertainty and grief. Mother's Day proved especially challenging, but I remind myself that my mental health and personal development depend on this distance. One unanticipated result of this is that I have started to be really helpful to friends handling personal family financial problems. Many people have come to me seeking guidance on establishing limits and handling financially reckless family members. Being able to guide others through the same circumstances makes one feel wonderful. Regarding my parents' financial circumstances, my aunt has told me they are having trouble. Apparently, they had been depending on my credit for purposes beyond Emma's vacation. This has caused some conflict between them since my dad holds my mom responsible for pushing too far with the credit card theft. Though part of me feels bad knowing they are facing money problems, I tell myself that their bad financial choices are not my duty to correct. Emma has offered some observations on how our parents responded to all of this. She adds they still don't really know why I responded so passionately. They can't understand why I'm making such a big deal out of it. They view their activities as natural family behavior. This ignorance irritates me, but it also helps me to realize that I made the correct choice in separating myself. After much thought on my early years and early adulthood, I came to see trends of financial and emotional control I had accepted. Though it's been a difficult journey, it also releases something. I'm learning to validate my own emotions and experiences apart from parental approval. Regarding my personal life, I have lately started dating once more. Dealing with all this familial drama, I had been reluctant to interact with anyone. But lately I came across someone who has been rather sympathetic about my circumstances. Though early days, it feels fantastic to be developing a relationship with someone who upholds my values and limits. I'm also thinking about drastically altering my life. Though I have always wanted a master's degree, I put it off somewhat because of worries about how it would affect my capacity to support my family financially. I'm now really researching programs and thinking about diving in. Making decisions grounded just on what's best for my future and me feels empowering. I find as I draft this update how much has changed in a few months. The first shock and resentment had subsided to be replaced by a cool determination. I'm actively building the life I want for myself, not only responding to the behavior of my family. To those of you perhaps handling such familial problems, I want to say it gets better. Although setting limits is difficult and there can be reactions, keep firm. Your rights include those to guard your mental health, money, and personal belongings. Again, I appreciate all of your support on this trip. Your guidance and support have been a lifesaver. Though I'm not sure what the future holds for my connection with my sister and parents, I know I will be fine whatever comes of it. Right now I'm stronger, more certain of myself, and ready to meet whatever lies ahead. If there are any major changes, I will notify once more. For now, I am focused on forward-looking and creating the life I want surrounded by supportive people. Here's wisdom earned and fresh starts. Update 4. My last update was 6 months ago, and I felt it was time to let all of you, who have been so encouraging over this path, know the most recent developments. First, the most news. I have been accepted into a master's program in a city 3 hours from where I presently live. This 2-year financial technology program fits very nicely with my professional objectives. Starting this fall, I am equal in excitement and anxiety about this new phase of my life. Choosing to work for this degree was not simple. It involves quitting my career, relocating to a new place and starting some student debt, but it also means making investments in my future, in the manner I have always wanted. I came to see that I had been holding back, constantly weighing how my choices might affect my family. It seems quite freeing to now be choosing based on what would be best for me. Regarding my family, things have changed in ways I never would have predicted. 2 months ago, the no-contact period with my parents formally came to an end. I agreed to a family therapy session run under the direction of a professional therapist. It was quite strong. Defensively still believing they had done nothing wrong, my parents arrived, but as the session went on, some shockingly real facts emerged. My dad had hidden from everyone, including my mom, a large loss of money from a poor investment. For months they had been covertly struggling financially, and they looked to my credit card to keep appearances. Many tears and accusations followed from this insight. My dad felt guilty of his bad financial choices, my mom felt deceived by his silence, and both of them at once seemed to realize the weight of what they had done to me. Although this justification does not absolve their behavior, it did enable me to see the desperation driving their bad decisions. The therapist guided us through some of these problems, and for the first time both of my parents sincerely apologized. Monthly family therapy sessions are going to continue under our agreement. Though I'm still keeping strict limits and it's a gradual process, I feel cautiously hopeful about reconstructing our connection on better terms. Emma has kept developing and maturing. She moved into her own apartment and started working full-time in order to reach financial independence. Our conversations have become more frequent, and I feel as though I am first starting to know my sister as an adult. She has even sought guidance on saving and budgeting, which is a major advancement in our relationship. Personal-wise, the relationship I highlighted in my last update has evolved into something unique. Though it means we will be doing long distance for a period, Sarah has been quite encouraging of my choice to return to school. Her own experiences with establishing limits with family have made her a great source of insight and encouragement. Financially, I am in good shape. Thanks to the encouragement I got, I was able to somewhat offset the expenses of graduate school and save a sizable sum for my move. I have also started to defend my financial data far more aggressively. I recently had to turn down an attempt by a distant relative to guilt me into co-signing a loan. Though it wasn't easy, I stood my ground and felt good about imposing limits. I've been thinking about how much has changed since that first startling phone call from my mother concerning the credit card charges as I get ready for this next phase of my life. The hurt and resentment I had then have mostly disappeared. Instead, I now feel empowerment and self-assurance I never realized I had. This process has taught me so much. Even, and especially, with family, I now see the value of establishing and upholding limits. True family, whether related by blood or by choice, promotes your development and respects your boundaries. I have come to see that it is okay to give my own well-being and future top priority. Thank you to everyone who has tracked my narrative and provided encouragement and guidance along the road. During some quite trying circumstances, your words have been a lighthouse of strength and clarity. To anyone who might be experiencing similar family conflicts, know that it is possible to emerge on the other side wiser and stronger. I am excited and full of possibilities as I pack my flat and get ready for this new journey, not something I have felt in years. I'm glad of how far I have gone, and I am excited about what the future presents. I'll be busy with my move and starting school, hence I might not update again for some time. Nonetheless, I will always be appreciative of the help I have gotten here. Here are fresh starts, acquired knowledge, and the bravery to design the life we wish for personally. Am I the asshole for calling the police immediately when my sister's family broke into my new house with a stolen spare key? Hello, Reddit. I, 27F, feel like I've spent the majority of my life in the shadow of my older sister, Anna, 30F. She's always been the favorite, you know, the one, smart, social, and capable of charming her way out of any situation. Meanwhile, I've been called the irresponsible one, which in my family simply refers to the one who does all of the work but receives no credit. Growing up, Anna always had the best of everything. Her birthdays were large garden festivities complete with bounce castles and pony rides. Mine. A pizza party in the dining room featuring a cake from the grocery store bakery. Anna got the Barbie dream house for Christmas, whereas I got a second-hand counterfeit with a missing elevator. My parents would simply remark, "You don't need all that fancy stuff," or, "Be grateful for what you have." However, Anna's gratitude was never required in the same manner. The big separation occurred when I entered college. I had worked hard in high school, juggling AP classes and extracurricular activities to maintain a high GPA. I was admitted to a local university and believed I had a great plan. I'd commute from home to economize on dorm fees. Anna had attended her dream school, and my parents had funded everything. So I figured they'd benefit me, too. Wrong. When I mentioned my plan to live at home, my mother looked at me as if I had just suggested we relocate to Mars. "If you're staying here, you'll need to contribute," she added casually. Anna got a full ride from us because she deserved it. You need to learn responsibility. I was 18 and preparing to enter college, and they were already talking about me paying rent. Contribute turned out to be $400 per month for rent and electricity, plus my personal groceries. That may not seem like much unless you're a broke college student working part-time at a bookstore for $9 per hour. I attempted to explain, reminding them that they had covered everything for Anna, that she had never had to worry about money at school. Mom simply shrugged. "We gave Anna what she needed," she stated. "You're different. You're independent. You'll figure it out." So I did. I worked as many hours as I could at the bookshop, occasionally skipping meals to make ends meet. Every morning, I would pass past the campus coffee shop, envious of the students who could purchase lattes and pastries while I brown-bagged PB&J sandwiches and drank free coffee from the bookstore break room. I never bought a textbook at full price. Everything was used or borrowed from the library. Every month I handed over the $400 to my parents while Anna was away at her out-of-state school, living in a brand new dorm that my parents had purchased for. She contacted me once to complain about her dorm's AC not being chilly enough, and I almost lost it. I didn't have air conditioning in my automobile since I couldn't afford to fix it. My parents continued to send Anna money each month. I once overheard Mom on the phone saying, "We don't want her to struggle. College is difficult enough." I stood in the kitchen, clutching my $1 ramen noodles, wondering why none of that compassion was ever shown to me. To make matters worse, my parents were continually praising Anna for her accomplishments. She earned a 3.2 GPA in her communications department, and they threw her a lavish graduation party complete with a catered buffet and a DJ. When I graduated with a 3.9 and a computer science degree, we had a peaceful meal at home. Mom prepared lasagna and replied, "Well, we don't want to make a fuss." Looking back, I believe what stung the most was not the absence of financial assistance, but the apparent message that I didn't count as much. Anna was always portrayed as the star with potential, while I was just there. Even when I achieved it, it was overlooked. "Kate's smart. She doesn't need help," they'd say. It seemed like being capable was a curse. After college, I moved out as quickly as possible. I rented a little apartment near my first job and began living my life on my terms. It wasn't easy, but it felt great to be free of their expectations. I worked hard, lived frugally, and began saving. Meanwhile, Anna married Josh, 32 million, whom my parents adore, despite the fact that he's constantly changing jobs. They currently have 3 children, Sophia, 5F, Lucas, 4M, and baby Noah, 2M. My folks are continually bailing them out. When their automobile broke down last year, my parents handed them money to get a new one. When Anna complained about how difficult it was to keep up with 3 children, Mom and Dad offered to babysit on weekends. I wish it didn't bother me anymore, but it still does. No matter how much I do on my own, it seems like I'll always be second to Anna. That is why I no longer share many details about my life with my family. I know they wouldn't mind, not really. So, I've been keeping this quiet, but I recently decided it was time to start looking for a home. I had been renting this tiny flat for years, paying far too much for what was essentially a glorified shoebox. And I'd been saving for what seemed like forever. I ultimately came to the point where I thought, you know what? I deserve it. Now, here's the thing, I didn't inform my family. Not because it's a big secret, but because nothing with them can ever be solely about me. Everything becomes a group project. If I mentioned anything, I knew they'd start making it about Anna and her children, and how whatever I earned would help them in some way. So I decided it was easier to keep my lips shut until all was said and done. Apparently, that was overly hopeful. I'm not sure how this happened, but a woman I work with, let's call her Lisa, managed to let it slip. Lisa is one of those people who is always interested in what others are doing, and I believe she casually mentioned to someone that I was looking for a house. That person simply happened to be Anna's neighbor. From there, the news spread like wildfire. The delights of small-town Texas. A few days later, my mother contacted me. "Kate," she said, her tone excessively joyful. "Why didn't you tell us you're looking for a house?" I should have known better, but I chose to play dumb. "Oh, I'm just browsing around right now, nothing serious." "Well, Anna and I have been talking, and we have some great ideas for you." I could sense dread creeping in. "You're going to need something big enough for everyone, you know. At least 4 bedrooms, for the kids of course." "What kids?" I questioned. "I don't have kids." She kept going as if this were the most regular thing in the world. "You'll need space for Anna's family when they visit. And for us too. Oh, and it'd be great if it was close to Anna's place." I'm not sure why I was startled. She had already turned my potential house into the solution to their issues. I said something non-committal and hung up the phone as quickly as I could, thinking it was a one-time occurrence. But, oh dear, it wasn't. My mom and Anna began flooding me with house listings after that. I'm not exaggerating when I say it turned into a part-time job for them. Every day, I'd receive at least a dozen links to ludicrous houses, large homes with 4 or 5 bedrooms, pools, 3-car garages, and the works. It was as if they assumed I was looking for a reality TV mansion. One day, Mom texted, "Did you see that one on Maple Street? It's a huge one, just perfect." Another time, Anna emailed me a link to a 6-bedroom property with a remark that read, "This would be so suitable for us. We finally have space to spread out. United States." I stared at the message for a good minute, wondering how my property purchase had become a collaborative endeavor. What is the worst part? They were not even pretending it was about me. Every place they recommended was oriented toward Anna's family. "This one has a finished basement, Josh could turn it into his man cave. The kids would love the pool in this one. Look, Kate. There's even a guest room for Mom and Dad when they visit." It was exhausting. At first, I attempted to gently lead them away, assuring them that I was only shopping for something modest for myself. But that simply made matters worse. That's when I decided to cease responding. I silenced the group chat and disregarded their messages. I assumed they would finally get the point and move on. Meanwhile, I continued searching for houses on my own. I spent my evenings reading through Zillow and my weekends looking at open houses. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, and I avoided anything slightly related to Anna's area. I didn't want to run into anyone who might tell my mother. After weeks of looking, I finally found it, a little 2-bedroom cottage just outside the city. It had everything I desired. A nice little porch, a sunny kitchen, and a lawn large enough for a garden. It wasn't elegant, but it felt familiar. The moment I stepped through the door, I knew it was mine. I submitted an offer, and after a few nerve-wracking days, it was approved. I can't even explain how fantastic it felt. For the first time in my life, I was doing something solely for myself, with no influence from anyone. Of course, I did not inform my family. I decided to let them keep delivering their helpful suggestions while I silently moved forward. But then my mother called me out of nowhere. "We're having dinner next weekend. You're coming, right?" I nearly said no. But then I had a thought. You know what? Let's get this over with. So I'm going to this dinner, and I already know what it will be like. They'll probably have a full PowerPoint presentation prepared. Here comes the fun part. I'm about to reveal that I've already purchased a home. I won't sugarcoat it either. I can already hear theatrical gasps and complaints. "Thank you for sticking around. I'll send you an update after dinner." Update 1. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who left comments and advice on my previous article. I promised to update you after dinner, so here we go. Buckle up, because there was a lot. So I arrived at my folks' place last Saturday at precisely 6 p.m., mentally prepared for whatever rubbish they were about to throw at me. The moment I went in, there was already commotion. The kids were shouting, Josh was sitting on the couch watching TV, and my mother was busy in the kitchen. She looked over and said, "Oh good, you're on time for once. We are off to a good start, right?" We sat down for supper and the conversation began with the normal small talk. Dad complained about gas prices, Josh about something at work, and Anna about how difficult it was to manage 3 children. "Noah keeps waking up in the middle of the night," she explained, scooping mashed potatoes onto her plate. "We're just so cramped. I feel like I'm losing my mind." I knew where this was going, but I played along, nodding sympathetically while concentrating on my lasagna. Then my mother cleared her throat in the manner she did before making an announcement. "Kate," she replied with a huge smile, "we've been talking, and we think we found the perfect house for you." I almost choked on my water. Of course, they'd arrive with a plan. "Oh?" I asked, keeping my tone as neutral as possible. "Yes," Anna chimed in. "It's a beautiful place, and it's only a few blocks from us. It has 5 bedrooms, A huge yard for the kids, and even a guest suite. Mom interrupted before I could respond. It's perfect for everyone. There's enough space for the kids to finally have their own rooms, and Josh could even set up an office. Plus, it's in such a great neighborhood, close to good schools. I just stared at them, bewildered. They weren't even pretending it was about me anymore. So, Anna replied, smiling as if everything was settled, we can go see it tomorrow if you want. That's when I decided I'd had it. Actually, I responded, setting down my fork. I've already bought a house. The room went completely silent. Even the children stopped making noise. What? Mom asked, her voice harsh. I bought a house, I reiterated. It's a small, 2-bedroom cottage just outside the city. It's perfect for me. For a little moment, I considered whether they would be pleased for me. Mom's face turned red, and Anna's mouth virtually dropped to the floor. A cottage? Anna finally asked, her tone full of skepticism. How are we supposed to fit in a cottage? You're not, I informed you, because it's my house. I bought it for me. Mom stepped in before Anna could react. Kate, how could you make such a big decision without consulting us? We've been working so hard to find the perfect place for you. No, I replied, trying to maintain my cool. You've been working hard to find the perfect place for Anna and her family. I didn't need your help. I knew what I wanted, and I bought it. Anna's voice became quite high-pitched, as if she were about to cry. But we need this, Kate. Do you know how hard it is for us in that tiny apartment? The kids have to share a room, and Noah's crib is in our bedroom. It's not fair to them. I took a big breath, hoping not to lose it. That's not my problem, Anna. I've worked hard to get to this point, and I'm not giving up my dream house to fix your situation. That's when Dad decided to join in. He smashed his hand upon the table. You're being selfish, Kate. Family is supposed to help each other. What's wrong with you? I stood up, my heart racing. I'm not selfish. I'm finally standing up for myself. And if that makes me the bad guy in your eyes, so be it. The place erupted into turmoil. Anna was crying. Mom was ranting about how she had raised me better. Dad was complaining about how dissatisfied he was. Josh sat there, stuffing food into his mouth as if nothing was occurring. I grabbed my handbag and went to the door. Mom pursued me, crying, "You can't just walk away from your family like this." I turned back and screamed, "Watch me." I then got into my car and drove home, shivering with rage and relief. Things have gotten out of hand in unexpected ways. My mother and Anna have both gone on full social media attack mode. Anna shared images of her children packed close on their bunk bed with remarks like, "All they want is a little space to grow, but I guess some people think family isn't worth helping anymore." People who didn't know the complete situation left remarks such as, "How could anyone be so heartless?" To make matters worse, someone, probably Lisa, saw these posts, and now half of my office is talking about how I abandoned my family. I'm attempting to maintain a positive attitude and concentrate on my work, but it's becoming increasingly difficult. I'm bracing myself for whatever comes next, but I'm confident I made the correct decision. This house is mine, and I will not back down. I'll provide an update if something significant occurs. Thank you so much for all of your help. You have no idea how much it has meant. Update 2, I've been going over your comments, and wow, you guys didn't hold back. Many of you expressed surprise at how entitled my family sounds, and believe me, I share your sentiments. Others shared their experiences with similar situations, and it's reassuring to know I'm not alone in this. So, things have taken an unexpected turn. My mother unexpectedly visited my apartment yesterday. She was standing there with an apple pie, not my favorite, I prefer cherry, and the fakest smile I'd ever seen. "Hi Kate, I thought I'd stop by and see how you're doing," she said, as if she hadn't been part of the social media mob attacking me in weeks. Against my better judgment, I allowed her in. She placed the pie on the counter and gazed around my home as if she were taking inventory. "I wanted to apologize," she began, her voice full of fake sweetness. "Things got a little heated, and I realize now that we were wrong to push you like that. You've worked hard for this house, and I should have respected your decisions." Something about her tone did not sit well with me. Then she launched into a lengthy speech about how pleased she was of me and how the stress of Anna's condition had caused everyone to behave out. "But that's no excuse," she added, giving me a sad, almost imploring expression. "I was thinking maybe we could have a fresh start. I'd love to come over again sometime, maybe bring Anna and the kids. It'd be nice for everyone to see your new place." So there it was. The actual motive behind her visit. After she went, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Later that night, I recognized what was bothering me. She'd spent an unusual amount of time inspecting my locks and inquiring about my relocation timeline. My suspicions were verified when I returned home from work today and discovered my spare key missing, the one I had mistakenly left on the kitchen counter during my mother's stay. My phone vibrated just as I was processing this. My next-door neighbor sent me a text. "Hey, I noticed some folks trying to peep into your windows last night. It looked like a couple with children. Is everything okay?" I quickly phoned a locksmith to replace all of the locks. I'll also install security cameras first thing tomorrow morning. I can't believe they would go this low, but I'm also not surprised. I've stopped answering phone calls and texts from anyone in my family. Mom's apology was obviously simply a reconnaissance operation, and I'm done giving them the benefit of the doubt. The disturbing issue is that I don't think they'll stop. Dad left a voicemail stating, "This isn't over, Kate. Family has to stick together, whether you like it or not." At this point, it seems like a threat rather than a concern. I'm currently documenting everything, every text, voicemail, and suspicious incident. My gut tells me I'll need this record shortly. I will keep you updated if anything else happens. Reddit, thank you for all of your support. It's incredibly helpful to have folks confirm that I'm not insane for demanding fundamental boundaries. Update 3. Hello Reddit, I never imagined I'd be posting this update, but here we are. What happened today has left me absolutely disturbed, and I am still trying to digest everything. I went out this morning to conduct some basic tasks, such as food shopping and picking up a box from the post office. When I arrived home at noon, I saw something peculiar. Anna's SUV was parked directly in front of my house. My heart sunk immediately. I approached the door, fumbling with my keys, and heard voices within. Anna, Josh, and the kids were at my place. The atmosphere inside was complete mayhem. Sophia and Lucas were sprawled on my couch, surrounded by munchies and toys. Noah was toddling about my living room, munching on a throw cushion. Josh was in the kitchen, looting my refrigerator, and Anna was in the sunroom, rearranging my furniture as if she were on HGTV. "What the hell's going on?" I managed to reply, my voice shaking from fury and disbelief. Anna looked up, unaffected. "Oh hey, Kate, we figured it'd be easier to just move in while you were out." I glanced at her, trying to understand what she had just said. "Move in?" "Mom gave us the key," she explained, nodding to the kitchen counter. "We truly needed the space, and your home is ideal for us. It could have been bigger if you'd listened to us, but we'll make it happen. Josh can now have an office instead of bickering." Instead of arguing, I took out my phone and dialed 911. "Seriously?" Anna replied, her voice full of incredulity. "Are you calling the cops on your own family? Watch me." When the cops arrived, Anna and Josh attempted to argue that because we were family, this was not a true break-in. The officers wouldn't have it. They informed them that they were trespassing and needed to leave immediately. Anna began crying, saying she didn't realize it was such a huge deal, and Josh muttered something about my being selfish as they packed away their belongings, including the goodies they had plundered from my cupboard. After they went, one of the officers approached me and asked if I wanted to file charges. I considered it for a time before deciding against it, as long as they stayed away from my land. The officer nodded, saying they'd file a report if anything more happened. I've already phoned a locksmith to change the locks again, and I'll have a security system put in tomorrow. I've also hired a lawyer to create an official cease and desist letter to deliver to my parents, Anna and Josh. The letter describes everything they've done and expresses that if they continue to harass me, I will not hesitate to take legal action. I still can't believe my own sister felt this was appropriate and my mother gave them the key. I don't even have words for it. I will keep you updated if anything else happens, but perhaps this is the final straw. I am done giving them opportunities. Blood is not always thicker than water, particularly when it is dangerous. Update 4. I'd like to begin by thanking everyone who has followed this wild trip. After all of your comments and support, I believe I owe you a final report on the issue. Yes, I mean final, because I have formally severed all relations with my family. First came the guilt-inducing phone calls. Every single relative, including those I hadn't spoken to in years, began phoning me. My aunt, who hardly recognized my existence growing up, left a voicemail that read, "How can you do this to your sister? Family has to stick together." Then, my parents launched a smear campaign in our town. Mom shared photos of my house on Facebook. I'm not sure how she obtained them, with sentiments like, "It's so sad when someone forgets where they came from. Family sacrifices so much for you, and this is how they repay you." People who didn't know the complete scenario left comments accusing me of being ungrateful and selfish. Last week, Anna took it to a new level. She arrived at my business at lunch hour with all 3 children. I was in a meeting when our receptionist called to report that my sister was crying in the lobby and raising a disturbance. By the time I arrived, half of my coworkers had gathered to witness Anna theatrically tell how I was leaving her children homeless. I drew her aside and ordered her to leave. She responded by letting the kids run around the office while yelling about how I had plenty of space but was too selfish to share. Security had to take them out, and I had to have an embarrassing chat with my manager about keeping my personal concerns out of the office. The final straw arrived yesterday. My parents scheduled an intervention at their home. They informed my grandmother that I was suffering a mental breakdown and required family support. When I declined to attend, they attempted to have a local preacher visit my house to educate me on my family commitments. After consulting with my attorney, I took serious legal action. I applied for a restraining order against Anna and Josh, citing all of their harassment and the break-in. My lawyer also issued legal cease and desist letters to my parents regarding their social media posts and harassment. I've established a comprehensive security system that includes cameras and motion sensors, as well as changed my phone number and email address, which I exclusively share with trusted friends and my job. All of my social media accounts are now set to rigorous privacy settings, banning not only my family but also their friends and anyone who may feed them information. The most weird aspect of all of this is that they still appear to believe they are correct. My mother sent me one final email before I banned her, stating I was hurting her heart and that she had raised me better than this. She still doesn't get that this isn't about being mean or selfish. It is about setting basic boundaries and respecting oneself. But, you know what? For the first time in my life, I actually feel free. My house is just as I want it. I've started planting a garden in my backyard, which I'd always wanted to do but never had the space for. I'm making friends with my neighbors, those who don't report back to my family. I even adopted a cat, who is now snoozing in my sunny window. She is also not obligated to share her space with anyone she does not want to. Last weekend, I had a little housewarming celebration with some of my coworkers. We sipped wine and cheese on my lovely small porch, and no one said I needed more room or questioned my life choices. It was simply normal, joyful, and serene. I know some people may read this and think I'm callous for cutting off my family, but after 27 years of being treated as a backup plan, an ATM, and a solution to everyone else's issues, I'm finally putting myself first. Recognizing that family is more than simply blood, it's about respect, limits, and mutual support, can be the healthiest thing you can do. What about the house that sparked all of this drama? It's become my haven. Every morning, I wake up in my house, decorated exactly how I want it, with no one else's expectations to meet but my own, and I know I made the correct decision. Thank you to everyone on Reddit who has supported me on this trip. Your comments, guidance, and shared experiences helped me keep going when I was doubting myself. To those who shared similar stories, you helped me realize I wasn't alone in demanding fundamental boundaries. And to those who are now suffering with similar familial problems, remain strong. You deserve to live your life on your own terms. I probably won't be updating my tale anymore, partially because I've cut off all communication with my family and partly because I'm ready to go on with my life. But I'll still be on Reddit, possibly assisting others who are in similar positions. Thank you all again. Your encouragement meant more than you'll ever realize.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.
My sister attacked me and stole my boyfriend 6 years ago. Now, my parents are attempting to reconcile us by inviting my estranged sister to my bridal shower. My sister is 26 and I'm 28. After a horrible incident that I will describe in a moment, we haven't spoken for about 6 years. For whatever reason, my parents never discouraged the fierce sibling rivalry that existed between my sister and me as we grew up. They would really encourage us to compete more. In retrospect, I don't think that was a smart move because it caused us to become really envious of one another. Perhaps our relationship would have been better if they had taken care of it sooner rather than later. When we were younger, we could at least occasionally set aside our differences. But as we became older, our animosity for one another increased. When we reached high school, we hardly spoke to one another, and we enjoyed it that way. After that, I left for college and only saw my sister when I got home, which was somewhat preferable than always being around someone who was unpleasant. I began dating my fiancé around the time I was set to graduate. He finally plucked up the courage to ask me out before I graduated from college, after we had been friends for 3 years. Since I too thought he was great, I said sure. Since we had been friends for years and it didn't seem like a huge deal, I moved in with him after graduation. I brought him home for supper one weekend after we had been dating for 3 months because I wanted to introduce him to my parents. It just so happened that my sister, who had just begun college, had also made the decision to spend the weekend at home. It was already a formula for disaster, and we were both there. At the time, my life was going really well. I had a lovely boyfriend, a career, and my own apartment. My sister, however, wasn't doing as well. She was angry that she had to settle for her second choice of college after failing to get into her first choice. My parents later told me that she was having a hard time making friends at college, which is why she was coming home so frequently. I could tell my sister wasn't pleased when I presented my boyfriend to my parents. In the background, she pouted. I introduced them even though my partner was aware of my tense connection with her. She instantly turned on her charm as I introduced her. I tried not to be bothered by it, even though it seemed strange. But then things became more bizarre. My sister was very interested in my boyfriend's life and kept attempting to talk to him when we were all sitting around talking. We were both frightened, but we remained silent. Then she went too far and began openly flirting with him in front of me throughout dinner. She wasn't even subtle about it. She was clearly doing it to annoy me. I didn't want my boyfriend to realize how dysfunctional our family was. So I tried to ignore it for a time, but I was at my breaking point. Since he was my lover, I lost my temper and urged my sister to stop since it was repulsive that she was flinging herself at him in that manner. She simply rolled her eyes and continued to speak to him. I snapped and screamed at her, telling her that he was my visitor and that she should show him respect since she was making him feel uncomfortable. She was only assisting my lover in realizing that there were alternatives to me, and I recall her saying that he deserved better. We began cursing at each other because of the manner she stated it, which really irritated me. She wasn't doing as well as I was, so I dubbed her a loser and stated she was resentful. She was deeply affected by that remark. She pulled me over and slapped me after grabbing my hair across the table. Since we hadn't had a physical altercation since middle school, I was initially too surprised to respond. However, it escalated into a full-fledged fight after she struck me. We were so violent that my boyfriend and our parents had to break us apart. Even though we were both hurt and scratched up by the end, we continued to yell at one another. It was my partner who pulled me away, got me in the car, and drove us home while attempting to reassure me the whole time. That conflict might have lasted much longer if he hadn't been beside me, so I was glad to have him by my side because I was pretty worked up. I completely stopped talking to my sister after this episode. Although we had battled previously, it had never been this vicious. For me, it was the final straw. Since I was already living apart from her, I must admit that I no longer felt compelled to think of her as a member of my family. My parents called me the day following the event to inform me that they had reprimanded my sister. They hoped we could work things out in the end, even if she wasn't prepared to apologize. I informed them that I had no interest in resolving the matter. I didn't want anything to do with her anymore, therefore I wanted our relationship to stay awful. They attempted to convince me otherwise, but I reminded them they shared some of the responsibility. They had never recognized our fierce sibling rivalry since we were little and had even fostered it. They therefore couldn't be shocked that we didn't want to be together. We got into a fight because they didn't agree with me. They apologized over the phone a few days later and acknowledged their error. It seemed a little meaningless at the moment, but I've forgiven them. Even though I had already made the decision not to talk to my sister, I didn't want to sever my ties with my parents. It's been 6 years since that happened, and I haven't spoken to my sister since. But as long as they don't pressure me to make amends, I don't mind that my parents and she have a typical relationship. We seldom talk, but I have seen her at family gatherings. We avoid each other, even on holidays, and I like it that way. We don't get along, and everyone in the family knows it, but no one understands why. They only know that we got into a fight, and I haven't changed anything because neither of us looked good after it. I kept it a secret from my family for over 6 years, but during my bridal shower, I finally revealed the truth. In addition to my bridesmaids, my maid of honor had only invited close relatives and friends. Since we weren't adhering to the custom of just inviting women, my fiancé was also present. I wanted everyone I cared about to be there. Nevertheless, my parents chose to invite my estranged sister as well for whatever reason. Sincerely, I have no idea what they were thinking, but I was taken aback when they entered with her. I was surprised to discover that my sister appeared just as surprised to see me. When they walked in, the room became quiet, and there seemed to be a standoff. My parents approached me and spoke to us both after what seemed like a lifetime. They said that a lot had changed in the 6 years following the tragedy. Above all, they expected us to make amends because they thought we were older and more mature. Her face made it obvious that my sister had been duped by her parents to get her there. I informed my parents they had no right to do this on such a significant day for me before she could say anything. I gently requested that they go with my sister. My parents wouldn't leave, so I tried to maintain my dignity so as not to ruin the occasion. They advised me to move on from the past. They gave the impression that nothing important had occurred, as though it would be simple for me to go on, which annoyed me. I reenacted the entire episode to help them remember it, and to make sure everyone else knew exactly what had happened 6 years prior. I then inquired if anyone in the room felt that I could simply let go of this. If I had married someone else, it would have been a different story, but I was marrying the same man with whom my sister had openly flirted when I first brought him home to meet the family. She had shamelessly done it in front of me, treating him as though he were a participant in a tournament that he had never consented to. Above all, she attacked me first after doing all of that, simply because I called her out on her actions and labeled her a loser. I had never had someone attempting to physically harm me in that way before, so it was traumatic for me. Despite everything, she acted as if nothing had happened and never apologized to me in the previous 6 years. I didn't feel obligated to forgive her or move on from the past. I never allowed someone like her back into my life because I felt it was more vital to cling to the past. My parents' assumption that they could simply bring her to my bridal shower and expect us to comply was absurd. Fortunately, my sister realized her mistake and left before my parents could dispute much further. My mother followed her, presumably to appease her, as I assume she wasn't pleased about being misled either. My father stayed with me for a short while, but I informed him that since he had disappointed me, I didn't want to talk to him just now. He became irritated and accused me of being irrational, claiming that I was acting like a brat and that it made no sense to hold on to something that had happened 6 years prior. Although I didn't think I was being a brat, I told him to go since I didn't want to argue with him. He also left after a few minutes. After that, I was so overwhelmed that I had to take a few minutes off to gather myself. Fortunately, my fiancé and maid of honor supported me, and after a little while, I was back to my usual self. Everyone else cooperated, seeing that I needed a diversion and didn't want to think about my sister or dad, and we resumed the celebration as if nothing had happened. After the encounter, my fiancé and I went home, and we didn't discuss the situation further. I was okay with the fact that I hadn't heard from my parents since this incident, which occurred roughly 5 days ago. I felt that we should spend some time apart after what they did. Although I didn't anticipate hearing from them right away, they did, and not to offer an apology, but rather to hold me responsible for my sister's predicament. My mother called me this morning on the phone. As soon as I responded, she instructed me to contact my aunt and ensure that she offered my sister the position she had been discussing. I urged my mother to back up since she seemed agitated and panicked, and I didn't know what she was talking about. She went on to explain that my sister had been out of work for roughly 6 months due to layoffs and downsizing at her prior employer. She had to move back in with our parents a few weeks ago after realizing she could no longer afford the rent. She had been searching for a job, but she had not been able to locate one that she liked or that paid enough. My mother had discussed this with my aunt, who was launching a new company. Because my sister had been working in marketing before, my aunt had first chosen to appoint her as head of marketing. However, my aunt stopped replying and eventually revoked the invitation following the bridal shower episode, in which I told her what had transpired 6 years prior. Since I had always been my aunt's favorite, I didn't find it unexpected, and I believed it to be a plausible explanation when my mother forwarded the message my aunt had sent her to me. My aunt stated in her reply that it was evident my sister had severe anger management problems based on her understanding of the incident I described. My aunt wasn't pleased that she hadn't even offered an apology, not even during the bridal shower. Furthermore, my aunt stated that she had first chosen to hire my sister because she was related, but that she had interviewed a better competent applicant for the job a few weeks prior. She would now offer the position to the more competent applicant since she had changed her mind. That seemed totally reasonable to me, and I was genuinely glad my aunt had a change of heart. I informed my mother that I couldn't do anything about it after reading her message because, as someone who has seen the negative effects of nepotism in the job, I didn't want my aunt to be the type of person who makes things worse. Otherwise, my sister would have been employed because of nepotism. The real reason my sister wasn't hired was that it appeared my aunt had discovered someone more suited for the position. Since this was my aunt's business life and I didn't want to cross any lines, I informed her I wouldn't talk to her. In an attempt to destroy my sister's reputation and image in front of the family, my mother began to lose her head and began screaming at me. Since I hadn't discussed the issue in years, she suggested I didn't need to bring it up during my bridal shower. Even though I had started the argument by calling my sister a loser, especially knowing it would hit her where it hurt, she thought I purposefully painted her as unstable and nasty in order to garner the family's sympathy and make myself appear to be the nice guy. For the record, I wasn't hiding anything when I recounted the incident. I had stated that I had labeled her a loser before to her attack. Even yet, I don't believe that calling her derogatory names excused her physical altercation. It was just unjust for my mother to say that I brought up the incident in order to harm my sister's reputation. I blocked my parents and hung up. After giving it some thought, I'm not sure if discussing the incident was a wise decision. My mother said over the phone that I hadn't given my sister a chance, despite the fact that she had evolved over the years. That was pretty rude of me, she said. I brought up my sister's attack on me 6 years ago, which resulted in her losing a job offer. Am I correct in bringing this up? Update 1. Hi, Reddit. Before I discuss the events that followed my initial post, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who took the time to leave a remark. I appreciate your nice words and suggestions very much. Well, let's talk about what transpired after I blocked my parents. My parents were unable to reach me because my sister had been barred for the previous 6 years. They chose to come see me as they had no other method to get in touch with me. I truly don't have time to handle all of this because I'm getting married in a few weeks. I already have a lot on my plate. Since I had just returned from work and my fiancé and I needed to travel right away for a last-minute wedding dress fitting, I told them to leave when they arrived. We were going to go, but they had arrived at the wrong time, and I knew that if we opened the door, they would find a way to continue chatting and irritate me. They didn't go even after I threatened to contact the police. To be honest, I didn't want to call the police since I thought it would be excessive. Being the type of person who phones the police for everything was not something I wanted to be. We agreed to let them in, give them a cursory hearing, and then leave after speaking with my fiancé. After making up our minds, we invited them inside, opened the door, and ordered them to hurry up because we had other places to be. Fortunately, my folks didn't mince words. They said that my aunt had withdrawn her offer to hire my sister due to my actions at my bridal shower. They insisted that I talk to my aunt and make sure my sister found employment because, in theory, I was at fault. I didn't want to repeat myself because it was the same argument. I informed them that I couldn't do anything about it because I had already spoken to my mother about it over the phone. They knew I was busy and I'm getting married in a few weeks, so it seemed senseless to come to my place and discuss it again. My sister then cut me off. They came for other reasons, she claimed, besides the job offer. I was taken aback by that as it was our first conversation in 6 years. She went on to tell me that it was really because of her that they were there. She felt compelled to apologize to me. Since I'm still unsure of how I felt at the time, I genuinely don't know what to say to you all. Since I plainly don't trust her, I had serious doubts about her intentions. I chose to be direct with her as a result. I questioned if she truly wanted to apologize or if she was just there to do so because she believed I could help her land the job. I informed her that I couldn't help her, therefore there was no use in wasting her breath if it was only about the job. She appeared a little taken aback by my candor, but she was able to explain that she had come to apologize and that our parents were there to discuss the job. It was obvious they hadn't talked about this because even my parents appeared astonished when I looked at them. My sister, though, seemed unconcerned. She said that she was merely there to apologize and had no interest in the position. Over the previous 6 years, she had given her actions against me a lot of thought, but she had always found a reason not to say sorry. However, she was unable to deny the reality that she had mistreated me after the bridal shower. My fiancé and I were still having a hard time processing everything, but I could tell she was serious based on her tone and conduct. She informed me that she had been resentful of me since she was a child because she felt like she had to compete with me. Since nothing mattered in the real world, she understood that she had wasted her entire youth and adolescence competing with me. She felt bad about it because we could have been friends, especially because I had made multiple attempts to be her buddy. She acknowledged that she had pushed me away because she always thought of me as a rival. I had felt the same way, so hearing her utter all of it was crazy. I'm embarrassed to say that as she related her story, I began to cry. After that, she spoke to my fiancé and expressed regret for the way she had treated him during their one and only encounter. She acknowledged that the apology was long overdue and that she had been so preoccupied with defeating me that she had failed to recognize the type of person she had become. She didn't wait for our response once she was done. She merely stated that we didn't have to pardon her. She only wanted to let it out, and now that she had, she would stop bothering us. My parents, my fiancé and I were the only people left in the room when she left. Since none of us had anticipated it, we were all sitting in awe, trying to comprehend what had just transpired. My fiancé and I went out for my fitting after my parents eventually left without a word. We didn't talk about any of it until we got home. We only began discussing my sister's remarks approximately 30 minutes ago. Even though it took her 6 years, I felt that her apology was extraordinarily mature. She meant every word, based on her actions. My fiancé and I are currently debating whether or not to forgive her. Since we haven't even finished processing it, it's too soon to tell. We're tempted to get in touch with her later and express our forgiveness. I need more time before I can reassure her that everything is fine, even though I've already unblocked her. Even though it took her many years to realize we could have been friends, that is something I'm truly happy about. Update 2. Hello. I just realized that in my previous update, I neglected to express what I intended to do with relation to my parents. To be honest, I forgot about it because I was so preoccupied with my sister's predicament. In any case, my folks haven't gotten in touch with us since our previous visit a few days ago. We're going to keep avoiding them because I don't think they're sorry for anything. The way my sister and I ended up together is one of the many things I hold my parents responsible for. They still had the opportunity to be better parents, but they blew it. They have consistently made it all but impossible for me to maintain them in my life, despite my best efforts. We've fought and argued a lot over the last 6 years, and I've always tried to forgive them, but I'm at a loss now. People who obviously don't care about my feelings, or even my sister's, if I'm being honest, can't continue to be excused. In the end, we won't communicate with them, and I doubt they'll come to my wedding. However, my fiancé and I want to get in touch with them in a few days to inform them that they are no longer invited at the wedding, just to be safe. Update 3. Hello everyone. Last week I got married. Everything was lovely and fantastic, exactly as I had envisioned, and I had a great time. My parents were not present, as was to be expected. My spouse and I didn't even have to make contact with them. They informed me via email that there had been a huge mistake and that they would not be attending. They said my sister and I had begun to demonize them and that they didn't need to be reminded that we blamed them for the tense relationship. They said that, despite their best efforts to be excellent parents to us, they now intend to take some time off and live their separate lives without worrying about their daughters because we don't value their presence in our lives. I mean, if that's what they want, I'm okay with it. Happier news. A few days after I published my most recent update, I contacted my sister. I told her that I would love for her to attend my wedding and that I accepted her apology. It was a very joyful day, and she kindly accepted my invitation and attended the wedding. It's absurd to think that I would have sneered at my parents a few months ago if they had informed me that my sister would attend my wedding instead of them. But now we are here. In any case, I'm glad everything went without a hitch and that I'm at last getting back on track with my sister. This is sufficient for me for the time being, but perhaps my parents will change their minds and apologize to us. Life has never been better, and my husband and I will soon be departing for our honeymoon.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.
My parents disowned me and cut me out of their will because I'm not their biological child, but inheriting from a distant relative changed everything. Let us start from the beginning. My life changed dramatically when I was 14. Around this time, my mother decided to relax again, this time with a man whose previous marriage had produced a son. Jake, already 3 years older than me, was 17. Let's also admit that we didn't get along right away. The ink on their marriage certificate had hardly dried when the tension began to rise. At first, it was the tiny issues that arise when strangers are notified that they are suddenly family and brought together. Jake would leave dirty dishes in the sink, assuming they would clean themselves. Of course, I was the one who got a lecture from my mother or new stepfather about the kitchen mess. Alternatively, I would see my shampoo disappearing faster than usual, only to discover Jake with perfectly maintained hair that appeared to have resulted from using my favorite product. It was strange, but I felt upset by more than just Jake's antics. Tom, my stepfather, handled things in the same manner. I seemed to be the problem whenever things went wrong. He'd think I was responsible without even asking. Then there was my mom. She was too focused on making this new family dynamic work to see what was happening. She'd brush it off, cover for Jake, and pretend everything was fine. I could immediately detect the difference in expectations. Mom and Tom announced they were expecting a kid around a year into our difficult living situation. At that time, everything changed. Suddenly, everything revolved around the newborn. The house required renovations, and guess which room was chosen for the nursery? Exactly, mine. I was shoved into a cramped, claustrophobic guest room with barely enough room for my possessions. It felt like a demotion, a clear sign of my role in this new family structure. A few months later, Nathan, my new half-brother, was born and quickly became the center of attention. Jake felt the same shift and grew even more entitled. He dropped out of college and moved back home, bringing with him a whirlwind of late-night parties and questionable pals who came and went at all hours. Tom dismissed my protests about the noise and trash, while my mother simply looked sorrowful, as if to say, "What can we do?" It was infuriating. I started spending more time at friends' places, anywhere I could find routine. My escape ended up being school. I stayed as long as I could, joining every organization and taking extra classes. It was more than just adolescent defiance. It was about survival. Home became a place where I always felt as if I was walking on eggshells, waiting for the next explosion. It was suffocating. One evening stands vividly in my mind. I got home later than usual to find the house utterly still. A note on the refrigerator indicated that they had gone out to dinner, without me. I hadn't even been invited to this family supper. That note struck harder than I expected. I felt invisible, as if I did not truly belong. And it stung. Not shortly after my 18th birthday, everything almost broke. I felt Tom disliked me having any excuse to leave the house, despite the fact that I worked part-time. He repeatedly told me that it would jeopardize my academic progress. Then one evening, I returned home to discover my room utterly trashed. Jake hosted a party while my mom and Tom were gone, and my room suffered as a result. A broken lamp, alcohol stains on my project documentation. It was an outright breach of my privacy. I challenged them at breakfast the next morning. Tom responded coldly and contemptuously, "You should have been more responsible with your belongings." My mother simply sighed and whispered something about families coming together and letting go. I had finished letting things pass. Everything I did during those years seemed to be scrutinized, but not in a way that suggested concern for my well-being. Rather, it appeared like they were waiting for me to make a mistake so they could blame me. Jake, who had turned into a professional couch potato, appeared to get away with it all. Although Nathan, my tiny half-brother, was still a child, the amount of coddling he received revealed who the favorite was. I remember one time when I was working on a large science project that I found really interesting. Even at home working on it was nearly impossible. I desired silence, so I set up a workstation in the corner of the living room. It felt like I was trying to build something delicate in the heart of Times Square. I eventually had enough. Jake would play loud music, Nathan would run about shouting, and Tom would complain about how my project was taking up too much space or making a mess. After packing, I went to see a buddy, whose parents allowed me to work in their tranquil dining room. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was able to concentrate. That was when I realized how odd my home life had become. My friend said, "You're always welcome here." The invitation was easy, yet it meant everything to me. For me, home was just a place I couldn't wait to leave. Home is supposed to be a secure refuge, yet every hour away from it helped me breathe a little easier. I started working extra shifts at my job. Of course, Tom didn't like it. He frequently mentioned my job as a distraction from school, but I knew why he disliked it. I wasn't around as much for him to critique. As I accumulated more money, the thought of moving out began to form in my head, but I realized it would not be easy. My mother and Tom were unable of dealing with the situation. The more I thought about it, the more it seemed like the only option to regain control of my life. I was a ball of worry the day I decided to inform them I was leaving. I discovered a basic yet fairly priced apartment near my campus. From my part-time employment, I had saved enough to cover the first 3 months' rent. It wasn't a lot, but it was mine. The prospect of having my own life and space kept me focused. One evening, after dinner, I seated Tom and Mom at the kitchen table. With my heart pumping, I attempted to keep my voice calm. I looked them in the eyes and said, "I'm moving out." The room became silent, and I could feel the tension mounting. You could have heard a pin drop. Tom was the first to reply. He smiled, shook his head and said, as if I had told him the most stupid thing imaginable, "You think you're ready to live on your own, just because of your age?" His voice was filled with amazement and a trace of mockery. At first, my mother said nothing. She simply sat there, staring down at the table, her expression unreadable. "I am ready," I said, attempting to sound more confident than I felt. The disagreement began when I stated that I needed my own room and had enough savings to cover it. Tom went on a rampage, accusing me. I was selfish, unappreciative, and tried to avoid my responsibilities at home. "He looks up to you, you know?" he continued, attempting to guilt me into leaving Nathan behind. As if that were enough to keep me in a hazardous atmosphere. My mother's response was calmer, but no less devastating. She did not dispute with me, like Tom did, nor did she attempt to stop me. She only continued to complain, saying things like, "Families stick together, and you'll regret it if you leave." But I knew better. This was not about family. It was about control. I stayed put not because I just desired my own space, but because I needed it for my emotional and psychological well-being. I felt like an outsider in my supposed home. I was tired of being held accountable for things beyond my control and of attempting to fit into a family that had made it apparent that I was not actually a member of it. I spent the following few days preparing. Every item I packed into a box felt like a step closer to independence, even though it wasn't easy. My mother entered my room on the morning I was supposed to leave. I readied myself for another battle, but it never happened. Instead, she helped me pack discreetly. Our conversation was brief. She asked whether I needed extra boxes or offered to donate old utensils. We both appeared to be avoiding the actual concerns, making light talk to avoid admitting that this was the end of something. Later that day, when I locked the door to my new flat, I experienced an uncommon range of feelings, including relief, grief, excitement, and worry. I was now living completely on my own. It felt simultaneously liberated and terrible. The first few nights were the most challenging. The flat seemed overwhelmingly empty and quiet. I found myself longing even the disagreeable sounds of home, like Jake's loud music, Nathan running around, and Tom's incessant nagging. However, as the days passed into weeks, I grew to cherish the silence. For the first time in years, I could actually breathe. I no longer had to tiptoe around the house, worrying about Tom's mood swings or whether Jake had hosted another party. I could come and go as I liked, eat when I wanted, and sleep uninterrupted. It seemed like I was finally discovering who I was beyond the insanity of my family. A new type of freedom. Life rapidly found its groove. I balanced work, education, and maintaining my modest apartment. It was not flashy, but it was mine. My connection with my mother and Tom improved slightly after I moved out of their house. I kept my distance but saw them sometimes, which made things easier. Then, unexpectedly, I received a call from my mother. Her speech was muted and more light than normal. "Tom's been thinking about his will," she added, simply as if discussing the weather. "He wants to make sure everything is in order." I reacted hesitantly, not sure where this was going. After a pause, she said, "He has decided to include Jake and Nathan but not you. Because they are his biological children, he believes it is more rational." There it was. It stings. Although I hadn't expected much from Tom, seeing it stated so bluntly hurt me harder than I anticipated. It wasn't about the money, but about the message. The reminder that, despite all these years, I was still not regarded as a member of the family. I forced myself to answer neutrally. "I understand." Mom, maybe sensing the hurt, hastily attempted to ease the impact. "You understand, this is just legal things. It doesn't impact our feelings for you, right?" Even if I didn't believe her, I allowed the conversation to divert to other issues. But the harm was already done. That night I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, with that familiar sense of not belonging gnawing at me. Part of me wanted to confront Tom, demand an explanation, or simply tell him how deeply it hurt. However, another part of me questioned the point. For years, that family had not felt like a part of me, so why should it matter now? I ultimately decided to back off. I reduced my visits, stayed busy with school and work, and spent more time cultivating relationships with people who actually appreciated me. Friends, instructors, and co-workers who loved me for who I was, not for what I could contribute or because we had once shared a home. These were the individuals that mattered. The anguish from Tom's will and years of feeling like an outsider began to recede. It wasn't an overnight metamorphosis, but the hatred subsided, though it would occasionally boil up, especially at family events, when I saw Jake and Nathan relishing in the spotlight. I began to realize that some things were beyond my control. I started establishing my own family and sense of belonging. A few months later, Tom recovered from his health scare and their lives resumed to normal. Then came the actual test. I was invited to a family dinner to celebrate Tom's recovery. I went out of responsibility, rather than choice. The evening was just as awkward as I expected. Tom talked about his recuperation. Everyone gushed about Nathan's newest academic accomplishments, and Jake boasted about a new job he had suddenly landed. I sat there relatively silent, and it was painfully obvious that I was the odd one out. However, this time it stung less. I had come to terms with my status in the family. I was the outsider, yet there were individuals in my life that cared for me for myself, not because of family obligations or shared DNA. I made an excuse about an early start and went after dinner. As I drove home, I felt a weight lifted from my shoulders. "I'm good," I told myself. "Really good." I dealt with the emotional impact, faced the truth of my situation, and emerged stronger and more confident in myself than ever before. For the first time in years I felt peaceful. But life had another surprise in store. Just when I thought I had finally achieved some calm and routine, everything turned upside down again. One afternoon, I got a call from a lawyer I'd never heard of. His tone was courteous and professional, but his voice had an almost apologetic aspect. "Am I speaking with Jessica Evans?" he inquired. "Yes, that's me," I explained, bewildered. "I'm calling about Margaret Evans, Your great-aunt's estate, he explained, his tone slow and measured. She passed away recently and named you as the sole beneficiary. For a little period I fell silent. I couldn't recall Aunt Margaret. She was one of those distant relatives you'd hear about but never actually knew. She didn't have any children, and I faintly remembered my father mentioning her once or twice as someone who had helped raise him. I hadn't seen her in years, possibly since I was a tiny child. And now I'm being informed she's left everything to me. I'm sorry for your loss, the lawyer said, breaking the stillness. She was a remarkable woman. Still absorbing his remarks, I blurted out a thank you. Then, half expecting it to be something simple, perhaps an old house or a few family heirlooms, I inquired, exactly what did she leave behind? Your great-aunt was quite well off, he said. Over the years, she made some excellent investments. The estate contains various properties, a significant stock portfolio, and a trust fund worth approximately $3 million. My heart halted for a moment. I sat there gripping my phone thinking, why me? We weren't very close. When I was younger, I paid her a few trips, but our relationship was never genuinely strong. My mind could not fully grasp it. The attorney then stated, she left a letter for you. I will forward it together with the other documents. He noted that she went into greater detail regarding her decision. After we hung up, I sat there staring at my phone, trying to make sense of everything. Why did Aunt Margaret chose me to inherit everything? I scarcely know her. Was this some kind of mistake? The next few days were spent meeting with the attorney, signing paperwork, and discovering exactly what I had inherited. There were houses, stocks, and personal stuff in addition to the money. Aunt Margaret's letter, however, impacted me deeply. In it, she stated that she had always appreciated my independence and saw in me a reflection of herself at my age. She described me as determined, self-sufficient and capable of creating a life on my own, qualities she thought she lacked when she was younger. She wanted to offer me the opportunity to spend her riches for something meaningful. It was overwhelming. Here was this relative I barely knew, who saw something in me that my own family hadn't noticed. She appreciated and chose me. My initial move was to purchase a tiny home. Though it wasn't lavish, it was mine and represented a new chapter in my life. Thinking about long-term financial security, I also bought a rental property and invested the leftover monies. I spoke with a financial expert to ensure that I made sound judgments. It seemed weird. In the course of a week, my life had entirely changed. I no longer had to scrape by or wonder how I would make ends meet. For the first time, I felt truly secure and free. However, freedom brought a new set of challenges. At first, I didn't notify anyone about the bequest, even my relatives. Given our tumultuous past, I knew the news would not be well received. I owe them nothing. But secrets have a way of getting out, and mine was no exception. It began with a cousin I hadn't seen in years, who heard about the inheritance through legal means. My mother found out before I did, and the rest of the family soon followed suit. The phone calls started almost immediately. First, my mother called in an unusually cheerful and inquisitive tone. She complimented me, then casually stated how difficult things had been financially for her and Tom. I sensed where the talk was going, and sure enough, the floodgates erupted. Tom called first, then Jake, and then some distant cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Each intimated, in their own way, that they needed a piece of my inheritance. Times are tough, they would say. My mother even commented, you know how bad Tom's health has been, as if this explained their newfound interest in me. They all seemed to have forgotten about me, but only as a possible ATM. I was overwhelmed with requests for money, loans and gifts. It felt like vultures were circling, waiting for their time to swoop down. I felt overwhelmed. For a brief period, I considered quitting up, questioning whether holding on to the bequest was selfish. But then I remembered all the years I'd spent feeling like an outsider in my own family, being blamed, discarded and ignored. I had worked hard to earn whatever I had before this windfall. I had gotten it through college on my own without their help, and now that I had some stability, they wanted to take it away. When I was struggling, none of them volunteered to help. When my mother eventually inquired why I hadn't told her about the bequest sooner, I found the strength to reject the guilt and manipulation. I softly but firmly explained to her that our separation was both emotional and physical. I had been kept away, ignored, and alienated for years, as if I belonged nowhere in the family. This inheritance allowed me to live on my own, without relying on anybody else. It is my life, I assured her, and I must live it in my own manner. I apologize if this offends you, but right now I need to act in my best interests. The outcome of that conversation was worse than I could have predicted. Mom accused me of being arrogant and inconsiderate. Tom interjected, chastising me about how families should treat one another. Nonetheless, I stood my ground. Over time, the calls got less frequent, and the demands for money ceased when they understood I would not give in. It was challenging, but extremely necessary. I had realized a sad reality about family. Sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones who bring you down. Knowing that I had protected myself brought me calm. Finally, I decided not to let them dictate my life. This inheritance was about taking control of my own destiny and, more importantly, gaining the ability to live my life on my own terms. My communication with them became strained, but I'd become accustomed to it. Their approval was no longer required, and I was not bound to offer them anything. I had friends, mentors, and people who actually cared about me, not because of familial obligations, but because of who I was. The big surprise came from an unexpected source. My younger half-brother, Nathan. I unexpectedly received a clumsy handwritten note from him. "I'm sorry for asking for money. I miss you," he wrote in his untidy handwriting. Though little, this step meant a lot to me. Nathan, barely 14, was reaching out in his own way. After that, we started texting. Little conversations about his school and interests, nothing too serious, but it was something. It was the start of a modest bridge between us, even though I wasn't optimistic about reconciling with the rest of the family. I was creating a life for myself, free of need on anyone else. For the first time in years, I felt completely free. However, the impression of tranquility was fleeting. Just as I thought things had settled down, my mother contacted me again a few weeks after Nathan's letter. This time, she wished to talk things over. I could tell this wasn't going to be a chat about reconnecting or finding common ground, so I agreed to see her in public in the hopes of keeping things nice. We met at a nearby cafe and the vibe was unsettling from the start. She rarely inquired about my life or how I was doing. Instead, she got right into how difficult things had been financially since Tom's health crisis and how Nathan's private school fees were stacking up. I sat there, listening, feeling like an outsider in her list of troubles. It quickly became evident why she had requested to meet. She also added that they were thinking of upgrading the house and that she really needed a vacation to relieve her stress. It was clear she was not there to heal our relationship. She was there for a single reason. Finally, I could not stand it any longer. I cut through the tension, saying, "Mom, just get to the point." She looked me in the eye and said, without hesitation, "I expect you to write me a check for $1 million. I nearly choked on my coffee. "Excuse me?" I asked incredulously. She did not waver. "It is only fair. Technically, since it came from your father's side of the family, all of that money should have been mine." I was shocked. Her entitlement and audacity were astonishing. She sat there, casually demanding $1 million as if it was her birthright. I said bluntly, trying to keep my voice steady, "I'm not giving you $1 million. Her tone moved from entitled to plain angry, and her expression became severe. "You have always been unappreciative of everything we've done for you," she told us. Her remarks painted me as a criminal for not turning her the money she claimed she was owed. Without turning back, I paid the money and left the cafe. It still surprises me that my own mother attempted to guilt me into giving her money to which she had no right. What followed was even worse. A few days later, my mother started circulating rumors. She informed everybody who would listen that I had stolen the inheritance, saying it was rightfully hers, and accused me of hoarding it out of greed. Suddenly, relatives I hadn't heard from in years began calling, either to support her or to pressure me into sharing the money. The hypocrisy was staggering, especially given that Tom had omitted me from his own will because I wasn't family. Even Tom got involved, writing me a long guilt-ridden text about how I needed to consider the family and make more inclusive decisions. I reacted in a single sentence. "You didn't include me in your will because I'm not family, remember?" That shut him off for a while. But the drama did not end there. Things got heated when I received an official-looking letter in the mail. To my amazement, my mother was suing me. Yes, you read that correctly. She was suing me for a share of the inheritance, claiming that as my father's widow, she was entitled to a large amount of the money. I was stunned. Was my own mother dragging me to court? I could not believe it. At first I was afraid, expecting a protracted and costly court battle. I called my attorney, who laughed after reading the letter. "This is a joke," he remarked, flinging the letter away. "The will is airtight." He next investigated the so-called attorney who had sent the letter. The phone number was disconnected, and the address on the letterhead was for a decrepit building under construction. It became evident that my mother and Tom had engaged a dodgy, most certainly fraudulent lawyer in a last-ditch attempt to terrify me into paying them money. While I was happy that the lawsuit was unfounded, I was also terribly disappointed. Their willingness to go to such lengths for my inheritance was surprising. They had tried guilt-tripping and manipulating me, and now they were making direct legal threats. I was done attempting to salvage any sort of relationship with them. I understood I needed some distance. After the legal jitters passed, the emotional toll hit me hard. I was exhausted, sleep-deprived, and the constant drama was affecting my mental health. That was when I realized I needed a vacation from everything. We decided to take a road trip after talking with some of our friends. Nothing extravagant, just a trip to a couple spots we'd always wanted to go but never got around to. It was just what I needed. Time to clear my mind, escape the chaos and, most importantly, consider what I wanted for my future. As we began the road, I couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed in such a little period. A year ago, I was barely making it in a house that never felt like home. I now had financial security, my own home, and the freedom to make my own judgments without interference from others. It felt liberating, yet also bittersweet. Growing up, I looked to my mother and stepfather for guidance and encouragement. To me, family meant having someone who would always have your back, no matter what. But through it all, I learned a terrible lesson. Just because someone is family by blood does not guarantee they are there for you in the ways that matter. Throughout the trip, I reflected a lot and realized that I didn't need their money, validation, or acceptance. I had everything I needed, and the relationships I actually valued were those I had formed with people who loved me for who I was, not what I could offer them. In little ways, my friends, colleagues, and even Nathan expressed more genuine care for me than my mother or Tom ever did. Following the trip, I decided to write letters to each family member who had attempted to influence me. I did it for me and not for others. It was my way of achieving closure, expressing what I couldn't say in the heat of the moment. In those letters, I detailed how their actions had harmed me and how, despite my desire to be a member of the family, I was constantly pushed aside. I wished them well and hoped they would move on, just as I had. The only reaction I received came from Nathan. His letter was modest but sincere. "I appreciate you delivering the letter. I miss you. Let us get together sometime." It wasn't much, but it was the beginning. Nathan and I might one day develop something real, free of obligation or manipulation. As for the rest of the family, I had finally accepted that we were better off at a distance. The inheritance had served as a wake-up call. Not just a financial boon, but also a revelation about my true family. It wasn't the folks who raised me. It was those who supported me when I had nothing to offer but myself. Looking back, I don't have any regrets. I stayed firm, safeguarded my future and found peace by letting go of the poisonous connections that had been holding me back. Life has a peculiar way of teaching us what is actually essential, and I'm glad for that, no matter how harsh the lessons were. Sitting in my own home, surrounded by people who feel more like family than my actual relatives ever did, I know I'm precisely where I should be.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.